Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Thank you so much for joining us. I will bring on my co-host here, Jordan Bowman, momentarily. But before I bring him on and we get into tonight's show, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do so. That would really help us out. We're trying to grow this channel. We've been steady growing since last season, since me and Jordan started regularly contributing to the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. As you guys know, last season we did game previews, we did post-game lives, and then now all off season we have been doing the show that we call the All In Show here on the channel. So we appreciate you guys coming out tonight, hanging out with us. If you could go ahead and hit that like button for us, helps us out on the live videos. And then also, if you could share the video, tell your Clemson friends about it, tell your other college football friends about it. We welcome any fan base in here to chop it up about ACC football, college football, and then Clemson football as well. We cover an array of topics here, although it's mostly Clemson-centric. We will talk about all sorts of stuff, including tonight. We'll talk about ACC win totals and a couple other things. But we appreciate you all getting in here. And without further ado, I will bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. Jordan, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. As you can see, I'm in a little bit different spot than I normally am.
Undisclosed location for Jordan Bowman.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the backwoods of western North Carolina. I just got finished helping my little brother move out. He just finished his freshman year at Western Carolina University. So on the way back home, got my mom in the car with me. She's the one driving, so don't think I'm streaming and driving at the same time. So.
Yeah, there you go. Shout out to Mom. We appreciate her joining us here for the All In Show. Although I don't know if she has a choice. I think you might have forced her, Jordan. I don't know.
I kind of did. I told her, I was like, I don't want to miss this. So
you kind of involuntarily roped her into it, but hey. We enjoy her presence regardless. So another fan to the All In Show here.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
All right. So we got a few people in here tonight already. We got Go Tigers in here. He says, LFG Tigers. Let's freaking go Tigers. We got John Sarian in here. He says, now that the next graduation cycle is done, who are your candidates for grad transfers to help Clemson get back to 85?
There's quite a few options, that's for sure.
Yeah. So we'll see, right? We'll see. And as always, I forgot to mention in my intro, I apologize, guys. The Voice of College Football, that is Mark Rogers, has launched merch. Check out the link that I posted when we went live today. Go check it out. He's got sweaters, he's got hats, he's got shoes, he's got mugs, he's got all sorts of stuff. Go out there, support the channel. He is the reason that me and Jordan have a platform here to talk about college football and Clemson football with you guys. So please go support the main channel, the Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers. John Sarian says, huge series in Blackbird this weekend. Yeah, the baseball team's got a huge series heading into this weekend. Also, the softball team should be kicking off here at like 7:30, I think. Their first game for the ACC championship. Or for the ACC tournament, excuse me, not the ACC championship, not yet anyway. Hopefully they make it there. But their first game in the ACC tournament, I know Florida State won earlier today, our arch nemesis in the ACC when it comes to softball. But hopefully, shout out to the Clemson softball team. All the love to them. Hopefully, they get it done tonight when they play. John Sarin says no cussing. Mom's in the
Yeah, y'all keep it clean in here.
yeah. Keep it clean tonight. I think we normally keep it pretty clean, right, Jordan? I don't think we.
Yeah, we'll occasionally let one thing or two slip, but
Every now and then, but we tend to keep it.
Like I'm not here and just do what you want.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So we tend to keep it pretty clean. Jordan, Go Tiger said you hijacked the car.
Oh yeah, I wish. Yeah. No, it's still her car. She could shut me down in a moment's notice. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
I'm just appreciative.
That's right. All right. Go Tiger says the track team has started the ACC championship meet today. Yeah, absolutely. Tons of Clemson sports going on right now. Tons of things to talk about. We're going to focus on Clemson football here, and then maybe we'll get into some other sports later on in the show. John Hendricks is in here. Thank you for getting in here. My wife's in here. Thanks for getting in here, babe. You guys go ahead and hit that like button. We appreciate you guys getting in here tonight. We got a good show for you guys tonight. It may be a shorter show than you guys are regularly used to because Jordan's got stuff going on. I got stuff going on. But we wanted to bring you this show regardless. And as you can see, the dedication of my boy Jordan Bowman here doing it from the car. Shout out to him. But Jordan, let's go ahead and get into the show tonight. We text a little bit earlier. I talked about some things that we talked about some things that we wanted to talk about tonight, and I think we're going to kick off the show with I think On3 posted this. I think it was DraftKings that published it, but On3 posted the article about the ACC win totals heading into this summer and this fall. So we'll go just 1 through 14. We'll talk about the teams. We'll talk about their win totals, and we'll agree or disagree. We'll give our opinions, and we'll see where me or you land. So I guess we'll start at the top. And as per usual, this offseason, Florida State's getting a lot of love, and they're getting a lot of love in DraftKings as well. They are set at a 10 for a win total this year. Do you think they should be the top of the ACC as far as win totals? What was your reaction to that?
Well, it didn't surprise me. I mean, knowing, just coming into this offseason, how Florida State finished the season, they started kind of shaky. I think they were 4-3 through their first 7 games. Obviously, they lost 3 straight against Clemson, NC State, and Wake Forest. But after that, they got healthy. They got a lot of guys back, and they went on a run. They won their last 6, won 10 games, and beat Oklahoma in that really awesome game. So there's a lot of hype going into this season for Florida State. They bring back a ton of talent. Obviously, Jordan Travis is about as electric of a quarterback as you'll find in the ACC and in all of college football. They have really, really good, talented running backs. The offensive line has improved greatly since Mike Norvell has been there, and they've made some really, really big additions at the skill positions, wide receiver specifically. So they're going to have a really prolific offense. I really don't have a doubt about that. Mike Norvell, that's kind of just his forte, and that's what he's always been good at. But they also bring a ton back on defense. Most notably, Jared Verse on the defensive end. He was absolutely phenomenal last year. A lot of people thought he could have come out as a potential, day 1 or day 2 pick, but decided to stay in school. That Florida State's NIL, they came through, got him a nice little package to stay home, and so now they have a lot of returning production. I believe they're number 1 in all of college football as far as returning production. So does it surprise me that they are number 1? Not necessarily. It seemed like it was trending that way based off of all the conversation. But in my opinion, and we'll get to it more when we get to the next team, Clemson, on this list. But you've got to beat the man. You got to beat the man to be the man. And
That's right. That's right. I've kind of said it all off season. I understand the FSU hype. I get that they have returned a ton of starters, a lot of guys that were looking to go pro, a lot of guys that most of college football would have suspected to go pro came back to FSU this season. Everybody knows how well Mike Norvell has recruited in the transfer portal and adding players like Cypress and other guys along the transfer portal, something that Dabo Swinney has been somewhat, criticized about, right? But like you said, to be the man, you got to beat the man. It's got to happen on the field. FSU has not been able to do so. FSU, although they ended the season very strong last year, they lost 3 back-to-back games to kind of their biggest opponents last season. They dropped 3 games straight in a row, and they just couldn't get the job done. I do believe in their quarterback. I believe in their returning starters. I think they are going to be a very good team. I am in no way, shape, or form surprised about them being a over under at 10 for win totals. However, they're going to have to beat Clemson. Clemson runs the ACC as of right now. Yes, we've had a couple down years. Yes, we've been down for the past 2 seasons, most notably the past 2 seasons, but some Clemson fans would say a little bit longer than that. We've been trending in the wrong direction. However, you're going to have to beat us on the field. So over under a 10 for FSU, I don't necessarily disagree with it. Go Tiger says, looking good. So big games are, let's see, hold on. We'll get into Clemson here in a second. I think Jordan Bowman dropped out. I'm not sure where he went. But we'll get into Clemson. Clemson is at a 9.5 for their win total, according to DraftKings. I would obviously go with the over on that win total. I think Clemson has proven that they will win 10-plus games and until proven otherwise. They've done it for, how many ever seasons in a row now. Clemson has been that team in the ACC. I do believe Florida State is becoming a threat to Clemson. I do think they are going to be a problem for Clemson. However, until it happens on the field, like I said before, I'm not necessarily going to buy in. So, Jordan Bowman, what are your thoughts on Clemson at 9.5 over under for win totals? Clemson's been a double-digit win team for 11 plus seasons now. So, what's your thoughts on that? We might have lost Jordan Bowman, so we'll move on. We'll keep going down the line. We got UNC at 8.5 wins. UNC's got a lot of good players coming back. They got Drake May coming back. They did lose, some receivers. They did lose some skill position guys. But when you got a guy like Drake May at quarterback, they're going to be a really good team regardless. Question marks for UNC are going to be on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, it just is what it is. UNC has not been very good on the defensive side of the ball, and that hasn't really changed. Are you there, Jordan? Okay. We don't have Jordan yet, but UNC's real question marks are on the defensive side of the ball. I believe UNC's team this year will go as far as their defense takes them. Will they be improved this season? That's yet to be seen. They did make some moves, and we'll see how much they can improve. I believe in Drake May. He's probably one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the ACC. You know, so we'll see how far they're able to go. John Hendricks says 11-1 or 12-0. Clemson, that is. Okay. Big Mix says FSU starters transferring to Colorado. Yeah, well, Colorado's getting all the transfers, right? Deion Sanders over there mastering. He's changing what everybody thinks of the transfer portal right now. So we'll see how it works out for Colorado. FSU has not lost starter to Colorado yet. All the players that left are third and fourth string. Okay, so no starters leaving FSU. FSU seems to have, it seems like Mike Norvell has created a pretty good culture down there. It seems that they are trending in the right direction. Guys foregone pretty high, I think, NFL draft picks in order to come back and run it back for FSU. They're doing great in the transfer portal. So, I look, they're going to be a problem. You got Miami down in the 5th position at 7.5 wins over under. We'll kind of see how they trend. We'll see how their defense goes. Mario Cristobal did not have the start to his Miami coaching career that I think most of college football would have thought that he would have had. I think Miami is a talented team. I do think they have problems. They have to figure some things out. However, Mario Cristobal is a good recruiter, but he's got to put it together on the field. Some of the criticism coming out of Oregon for Mario Cristobal was that he had a lot of good recruiting and they underperformed when it came to on the field performance. So we'll see what Miami's able to do this season. I would take, I don't know. I just don't trust Miami. I'll take the under for Miami without blindly not looking at their schedule. I really don't know what their schedule looks like. I don't have it pulled up right now, but without blindly looking at their schedule, I think I would go under there. North Carolina State sitting at 6.5 wins. They got Virginia's quarterback transfer in there. They were really hyped up last season. Last season was supposed to be their year. They had a lot of experienced guys on the team. They had a veteran-laden team, and injuries and a lot of other things derailed their season, and they really just didn't get it done. So they are sitting at 6.5 over under. Pitt is also sitting at a 6.5 over under. You got Duke at 6.5 over under as well. Duke's a pretty interesting team because Duke came out of nowhere last season for a lot of people. They had a first-year head coach, came out of nowhere. They won, they won 9 games last season. No one expected Duke to do that. At the beginning of last season, no one would have suspected Duke to be a 9-win team at the beginning of last season, but they got it done. So it'll be interesting to see how Duke does in the second season, and how they kind of build upon the success that they had last season. Will they regress at all? Will they be able to parlay that into any sort of further success? FSU's returning a lot of starters, Big Mick. They're returning the most in the country, I believe. They got a ton coming back, and that's why they're getting so much love this offseason. That and the way that they ended last season. Let's see. More of the same for Mario. Top tier elite recruiting, but Yeah. That's kind of the thing with Mario Cristobal, right, John Sarian? He's a guy that recruits really well. But his teams don't necessarily produce onto the field at the level that he recruits at. So that's kind of been the thing for Mario Cristobal. Maybe he turns it around at Miami. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Go Tiger says, yeah, FSU is returning like 21 out of 22 starters. Absolutely. They're returning a ton of starters. FSU's got a ton of talent coming back. I think they were top 5 when it came to returning people, or not returning people. They're returning a ton of starters, and they were top 5 in the transfer class, right? So their transfer recruiting. So their portal recruiting. So we'll see if they can mesh those guys in, make those guys be able to gel with the guys that they currently have on the roster, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. But we got Syracuse at 6.5 wins. Are you back with us, Jordan?
I think we're finally good. Good Lord, man. I don't know what happened, but like my audio just completely cut out. I could not hear you guys no matter how many times I joined and joined back.
Yeah,
So
no, I got
have
you.
No idea.
I got you.
We're on the struggle bus today. This is the struggle bus edition of the Clemson Tigers All In show.
Hey, we're doing the best we can. We're doing the best we can. Tiger Paul Craven and Jordan Bowman bringing you the struggle bus. We're not on the Roy bus tonight. We're on the struggle bus when it comes to production. So,
where are we at?
So I moved on quite a bit, but I'll go back to Clemson because I want to hear your thoughts on the 9.5 over under. Clemson has been, a 10+ win team in the regular, or 10+ win team since what, 2011. What are your thoughts on them being 9.5 over under for win total?
A little surprised. Even like if you go back to last season, Clemson went into the season. I think their regular season win total was 10.5. And that was coming off of a really down season, by Clemson standards. But they've gone a full win lower than the previous year, despite the changes they've made on offense, the new starting quarterback. So when I was looking at it, I kind of figured that the reason why this win total has dropped was because of the schedule. That's the only thing I can think of. The rise of Florida State, and they have Clemson has two pretty difficult, I'd say, non-conference games. Notre Dame, obviously, you have coming to town, and then South Carolina as well at the end of the year, who has definitely improved under Shane Beamer. I think that's the only way to explain it. And there's some other games that Clemson could possibly lose along the way. You open the season with a Duke team that has improved significantly and is a much bigger test than they would have been in previous years. You've got obviously North Carolina is coming to town as well. Drake May, obviously great quarterback. You can never count them out, and they have personnel on offense to make that a game. And just going down the schedule, you have some tricky teams. Miami, I know we like to joke about Miami, but they still have a lot of talent. And if the coaching changes and some of the transfer portal additions they've made gel, they could definitely be a team that could give Clemson some runs. So, I tried to rationalize it. I still think it's too low.
It's way too low.
If I was setting a win total, it would probably be the same as last year. I'd go 10.5, and so I think 10-2 is 10-2 is definitely more likely than 9-3 for sure.
Yeah, no.
So
I would definitely go over on the Clemson win total. We got a super chat here from IDK James. He said, "Hey from Jacksonville, Clemson alum from Sumter. I'll take Clemson to cover. Unbiased, of course.
No, he's good.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we're all unbiased here.
Yeah, of course.
No
He's
orange-colored
completely
shades
unbiased.
for us.
Yeah, no, completely unbiased show here. Don't kid yourself. But thank you for supporting the show, IDK James. We appreciate the super chat. Shout out to you. Thanks for stopping by, and we hope you keep coming. So I went through a couple of. I got all the way down to Syracuse. So UNC at 8.5. I know they have Drake May coming back, but the big question mark for UNC is defense. I mean, it's just the defensive side of the ball. Drake May's going to do his thing. Yes, did he lose J.K. Dobbins on the offensive side of the ball? He lost, that weapon.
Josh Downs, you mean?
Josh Downs. Sorry.
I was like, J.K. Dobbins has been in the NFL for a while, and he played.
My bad. Josh Dobbs, right? On the offensive side of the ball. So he lost him. But I think Drake May's still going to do his thing. He's an elite quarterback. He's probably, guys in the ACC can argue about it, but he's the first or the second best quarterback in the ACC right now. FSU and UNC fans can fight that out all they want. But it's really it starts and ends with the defense. The defense is going to determine UNC's season. And honestly, if I'm a UNC fan, I don't feel great about it. I really don't.
I mean, why would you? I mean, if you've watched this North Carolina team under Mac Brown for several years now. I mean, we're what, year 4 into this whole Mac is back experiment.
Yeah.
Year 4, right? No, year 19. No, year 5.
Year five.
So
yeah, we're going into year 5.
So it's really been a really up and down tenure. Now, I do think that Mac Brown has raised the standards for sure at North Carolina. He's recruited extremely well. There's talent on that team, but if you've watched them on the defensive side of the ball the past few years, you wouldn't be able to tell. There's a lot of star-studded guys along the defensive line, linebackers, and defensive backs. They've had a lot of guys enter the transfer portal, but they have not developed to the degree that you would have expected. And Mac Brown decided to bring back Gene Chizik from the dead to coach defense one more time. First year was definitely an improvement, I guess, over 2021, but they still were really, really bad. And that's you bring back Gene Chizik for you choose not to fire him, you choose to retain him. You have to hope that everything clicks. Now, I think that UNC does have some interesting pieces. I think Cedric Gray is definitely one of the better linebackers in college football. But everything else, the defensive line, they have not gotten the production that you would have expected out of them.
Nope.
And they're replacing a lot in the secondary as well, from a secondary that was porous as far as pass defense is concerned. So, it's really going to come down to, do the defensive pieces gel? And really, even on offense, you got to find some playmakers, because Josh Downs is no longer there.
Yep.
And you need to. Drake May needs to find that number one guy. And,
and John Sarian makes a good point. He said, didn't UNC lose a good deal of talent on the defense? Mac was unable to pull in. Yeah, according to the UNC fan, all those people that transferred, they're no good. But
none of them have looked good except for maybe a couple of guys. So it's not really saying much. I think it's more to the development on that side of the ball and the culture on that side of the ball that just to why they haven't been successful. Because there's a lot of guys on that defense that were recruited by everybody in the country. A Travis Shaw that Clemson was heavily in for, really hasn't been much of a factor, early in his career.
Right.
Miles Murphy, the other Miles Murphy, who was in the same class, Clemson Miles Murphy, but he was also a really talented guy. He's had an up and down career. Obviously, we know about how talented Tony Grimes was. He's no longer there. He transferred out. after an up and down career. So, I mean, just there's a lot of guys that you remember from if you're a guy that keeps up with recruiting, these are names that immediately strike a bell with you, and you look at their production over their career, and it's just like it's not impressive or downright bad in certain cases. So
yeah, it's usually like what happened,
Yeah.
It's usually what happened. John Hendricks brings up a good point. He said, "I'm so happy. They looking at us like we're falling off." Motivation for Dabo and the players. Look, Dabo is no greater motivator than when he is driving the Roy bus. So it definitely plays. It definitely plays into Dabo's wheelhouse that FSU is getting so much love this offseason. And if you think Dabo is not going to use that heading into the 2023 season, you're sadly mistaken. He's absolutely going to use the opportunity to motivate his guys and get his guys ready for the season. But let's move on to Louisville at 7.5 wins. That's their over-under.
Honestly, this is the one that made the most sense. I think just looking at it, Louisville is a team that finally,
they finally got their guy, man. They finally got their guy.
Yeah, they finally got the guy that they've been praying for and begging for these past few years. And Jeff Brom, their prodigal son, has returned home to coach them.
There you go.
And I think under this new scheduling format, they are finally also not having to play one of the most difficult schedules in the country every year. Having to play Clemson and Florida State and being in the ACC Atlantic. If you're not Clemson or Florida State is year in, year out, it's an uphill battle on whether or not you're going to have a chance to win the division or not. So Louisville being out from under that thumb and really being blessed by the scheduling gods this year, I think they have a chance to make some noise. They've lost some defensive pieces from a really good defense last year, but Jeff Brom is bringing in his signature offense. He's going to have some pieces to work with on that side of the ball. So I'm really intrigued to see what year one looks like, because I think Louisville is a team that could potentially, make some noise and kind of upset the cards. Everyone thinks it's Clemson, Florida State, and everybody else, but Louisville doesn't play either one of those teams, and they also don't play North Carolina. So they have a really easy schedule, at least in conference and really out of conference. Other than Kentucky, who they play every year, they don't really have much to speak of. So they've got a really good shot, and they've done some really nice work in the portal as well. So Jeff Brom, I really respect his coaching ability. I think 7.5 is good, and I think they have the potential for more. If I were a betting man, which I am on occasion, I would go over.
Yeah. I like Jeff Brom. I think he's been Louisville's guy for a long time, right? I hope it works out. I hope it's not a Scott Frost, Nebraska situation. I really hope it works out for him. But let's move on. We got a lot of stuff to get to tonight. We don't have a lot of time. So let's get to Miami at 7.5. Mario Cristobal, I talked about it, kind of when you were losing connection in and out. Mario Cristobal is a guy that recruits really well, right? But the production on the field never seems to match up with the recruiting rankings. Do you think he can get it done at Miami? What's your thoughts on the 7.5 over/under win total? Do you think this is a year for Miami to kind of make some noise? Just your overall thoughts.
I think it has to be, and yes, I do think, to answer your first question, I do think Mario Cristobal is absolutely going to get Miami, at least back to respectability. I mean, just the talent that he's bringing in, all of that. First year was a disaster. Obviously, the coaching hires didn't work the way that we all thought it would. Tyler Van Dyke didn't take that step that we all thought it would. But, Mario Cristobal took a step back, evaluated his program, and he wasn't afraid, kind of similar to how Dabo was with Brandon Streeter. He wasn't afraid to hit the eject button with his coordinator. Really both coordinators after 1 year.
Exactly.
Getting rid of the former Boyles Award winner and I'm blanking on his name, Josh Gaddis.
Ross Gaddis, yeah.
And as well as his defensive coordinator Kevin Steele, and bringing in Shannon Dawson and Lance Guidry to coach those guys, those sides of the ball. So he went to the Group of 5 ranks, got 2 really respected guys that haven't really gotten a shot at the Power 5 level. I think Shannon Dawson was the offensive coordinator for 1 year at West Virginia, but he was running Neil Brown's system. So it's going to be interesting. He didn't go for the huge splash names. He went for guys that have done what they do for a really long time at the Group of 5 level, and have really consistent results. And we're going to see if it pays off, because I think this is a year that Miami needs to show some proof of concept. Mario is always going to recruit well, but I think it would be a huge step for that program if they were to hit that 8-9 win mark. I think that should be the expectation. With all the talent they brought in a really strong recruiting class, and I think there's a lot of guys that are going to contribute early. So
this has to be the year for Miami. They have to start showing some results on the field. I think if you're Mario Cristobal, I think you have to start showing some results on the field. Miami fans are not exactly known for being patient or super rational. So I think some results need to be produced on the field this season. North Carolina State, a team that was talked about winning the ACC last year, dethroning Clemson. Our boy up there in North Carolina State, they got the Virginia transfer quarterback. They're sitting at 6.5 at their over/under. Everybody knows Virginia was a complete disaster last season. They did not play well. It was horrible. Everybody knows, not mentioning the tragedy that happened at Virginia. Our hearts obviously go out to them. They didn't finish the season as a football team because of that. They lost football players for that. But just talking about North Carolina State and their new quarterback transfer, how do you see that 6.5 over/under total going for them?
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting. I think NC State is a really intriguing team because of all the changes on the offensive side of the ball. But bringing in Brendan Armstrong from Virginia I think it's a move that needed to be made, and I think NC State has to start showing some signs of life on that side of the ball. Last season, they came into the year with really high expectations to be that team that dethrones Clemson, but it just didn't work out. They didn't have the receiver talent that they thought they would. The offensive line didn't play as well. They didn't really get much from the running game, and Devin Leary just didn't have the kind of season that we all expected. And he's at Kentucky, so it's going to be really interesting to see Brendan Armstrong reunited with his old offensive coordinator, who they brought from Syracuse. So if they don't have the receiver talent, I'm not all that high on their ability to work it out. They have a really nice tight end in Trent Penix. I think what's his name? The slot receiver is back. I'm blanking on his name right now. But other than that, they don't really have a whole lot of weapons on that side of the ball. And I think they lost a really good running back in Demi Sumo Karngbe, who dealt with injuries a lot while he was there. So
I don't think they
step up.
Yeah, I don't think they got better this offseason, and last season was kind of a disappointment. So I'm not sure that they hit that 6.5 win total. But moving on to Pitt is at a 6.5 win total as well. They didn't have the greatest season last year either. You think they can get to that 6.5 win total?
Pitt is a team that's I think they have one of the lowest returning productions in the conference. They had 6 players drafted. I mean, Pat Narduzzi has, to his credit, he's put a lot of talent in the NFL. They've won the second most games in the entire conference the last 5 years. So they've been really, really consistent. And Pat Narduzzi, he has an identity. The defensive line, their linebackers are always going to be really, really good. But if they don't start, making strides offensively, outside of the Kenny, the magical Kenny Pickett season, they really haven't shown much as far as a prolific passing game. So doing that and getting more out of the passing game is going to be huge because they do not have a lot coming back, and I'm not sure the defense is going to be as strong as it's been. But I think Narduzzi is a good enough coach. He has a good staff. He's produced consistent results. I think there's a good chance that they hit that mark anyway, but I don't expect them to be a 10-win team like they were.
I think they can. I think they can make a bowl game, but outside of that, I don't think there's a lot of expectation there at Pitt because of what they lost. Duke 6.5. Everybody, Duke's kind of the darling of the ACC last year, right? Duke kind of caught everybody by surprise last year. I think they won 9 games last year. They went 9-3. Kind of came out of nowhere. First year head coach, and nobody really expected it. And by the end of the season, everybody was looking up and they're like, "Man, Duke's for real," right? So, do you think they can build upon that success, or where do you think Duke goes from here?
Well, when you're a team that has the history of Duke, when you're trying to make a step up in the program, the first thing that is always great to have is quarterback, and they most certainly have that figured out.
They do.
100%. With returning quarterback Riley Leonard, I think he's one of the more. He really hasn't had the discussion in the offseason that I thought he would. But he was really phenomenal last year, and he was a huge part of their success. I think he's a guy that has legit NFL upside, and he's also, he also provides a lot in the run game as well. So I think he's a multifaceted quarterback, and that makes you dangerous already anytime a team has that. And so I think Mike Elko has done a really, really nice job there. I'm not sure I expect them to hit that, the 9-win mark that they hit last year, but I do think that 7 wins is definitely on the table for sure, and they're going to be a really tough out for anybody in this conference. So
I would definitely go over with the Duke win total at 7. They're sitting at 6.5. I think they can hit the 7. Elko, seemed to be a good coach, and to your point, they got it figured out at quarterback. And if you have it figured out at quarterback, you have a chance in every game, right? Because it's not as much of a quarterback-driven league as the NFL, but college football is still a quarterback-driven league. If you have it figured out at quarterback, you have a chance in most games, if not all games, depending on your supporting personnel. So I think Duke's got a chance. Let's talk about Syracuse and our boy Dino Babers up in the upstate of New York. They're sitting at 6.5. Everybody knows Syracuse from last year. They went on that tear early in the season. They got bowl eligible, and then they fell apart. They completely fell apart mid-season and lost a ton of games down the stretch and just didn't get it done. Dino Babers has been on the hot seat a couple times at Syracuse, and I don't really know it's hard to be like, Syracuse should move on from Dino Babers because, what do you expect at a university like Syracuse when it comes to football? They're not exactly rich in football history. They do have some basketball history, obviously, but I don't know if they can get to that 6.5 win total. I know Dino Babers is probably going to be, on the hot seat once again, because that's just kind of one of the things that happens every offseason for Dino Babers. But again, what is the kind of the ceiling for Syracuse? I don't know if you can do better than a coach like Dino Babers. I think he's great for Syracuse. As a Clemson fan, I can speak to he gives us fits a lot of times. I don't know what it is about him, but he gives us fits a lot of times. So, what's your thoughts on Syracuse and Dino Babers?
Well, the first thing that kind of stands out to me when I look at Syracuse is really just how many departures they've had in the transfer portal. I think a team like Syracuse is not really built to handle that kind of that kind of attrition in one offseason. I mean, you got guys like, obviously we know how good Sean Tucker is at running back. He's off to the league. He was a huge part of what made that offense work with him and Garrett Schrader in the run game, and just throwing it up to Rondé Gatson when they had the chance. But without Sean Tucker, you lose a huge part of that, and he was a central point of that offense. And they also lost a ton in the secondary. Grant Wood on, Jadius Greer on the defensive line. He just committed to South Carolina out of the transfer portal. You lose Jahad Carter at safety. I mean, you lose a ton of guys, and so there is potential for a really stark drop off, and that's kind of been the trend at Syracuse. When they've had a really nice season, they haven't really been able to duplicate that or even really come close. So
right. But I mean, Luke,
Syracuse isn't looking very good. I mean, they bring back Garrett Schrader and Rondé Gatson, so they still have that connection going. But I'm just not as high. They've had coordinator changes, so they bring in, they have a new offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So I'm just not sure about Syracuse. I don't think they hit that mark.
I don't think they do either. But Luke asked an interesting question. It's kind of the question I was alluding to when I set you up for that one. Was, can Syracuse do any better than Dino Babers? I mean,
in this day and age, I mean, it's a really good question, because Dino
it is
Babers,
a good question. I mean, he's a good coach.
Yeah, and at this point, he's one of the longest tenured, coaches, in the ACC right now. So we really,
right.
I don't know. That's kind of my answer. That's kind of a cop-out answer, but I really don't know. I don't know either, man. I respect Dino Babers, but Syracuse is such a difficult job, especially these days, and they from what I've read and heard, talking to Syracuse alum and people who are close to that program, they have not really been as invested in the NIL game as they would like. And when you combine the location, you don't really have much to recruit from, and you're not really offering much in NIL. It's kind of hard to expect much more than the success they had last season. And I think the days of when Syracuse was a 10-win team back in 2018, I think that I think those days are kind of in the past, and with the new scheduling format, it's going to be more difficult as well. Yeah,
I mean, we've seen college football change so much, and Go Tigers brings up a good point. Losing the OC was huge. Absolutely. It's a different day and age in college football with NIL and stuff like that. And, teams like Syracuse, unfortunately, kind of get left behind when it comes to things like that. So we got Wake Forest. Let's go to number 10. Wake Forest, they are sitting at 6, over under of 6 for Wake Forest. They lose Sam Hartman to Notre Dame. Their 27-year quarterback. He was the Stetson Bennett of Georgia for Wake Forest. And, he moves on to bigger and better things at Notre Dame. I think he'll be completely successful at Notre Dame. I mean, Sam Hartman is he's just kind of that guy in college football. He just, he performs really well. He does make a lot of mistakes, but at the end of the day, you can trust him. He's going to put up a lot of yards. And Wake Forest has a huge void to fill there. Although, maybe they have that guy in there. I don't know, but it's going to be rough to replace a guy like Sam Hartman at quarterback. That's just the simple fact. It's going to be rough. It's not easy to replace a guy like that. So Wake Forest at 6 wins, over under.
Yeah. Looking at Wake Forest, I think, yes, they lose Sam Hartman. But I do think they retain a lot of really good pieces personnel-wise on the offensive side of the ball. I think they obviously A.T. Perry's also off to the NFL, but I think they return a lot of really good receivers. Jamal Banks, Donovan Green, Keyshawn Williams, Taylor Morin. Those guys are all back. And Mitch Griffiths, we've seen a little bit of him. He came in when Sam Hartman had the medical issue, early in the year, and I thought he played really, really well. So I think Mitch Griffiths has kind of some zip to him. Just watching him, throw the ball, I don't think there's going to be too much drop off on the offensive side of the ball for Wake Forest. And I think that's mostly just because of the skill positions they have and the system. Dave Clawson and Warren Ruggiero, they've been doing it for a really long time, and that offense has shown consistent results through multiple quarterbacks. Obviously, Sam Hartman, going back to Jamie Newman, John Wolford. I mean, they've had success in that scheme, and so obviously they know what to do and how to make that offense work for the guys. Their signal callers. So I think Wake is going to be good. I think they're going to hit that 6-win mark pretty easily. They've made. I think they have the second longest bowl streak in the ACC right now. So that tells you all you need to know. How consistent they've been under Dave Clawson. I think I think it's an easy pick. I think they're going to hit that number.
There you go. Go Tiger says Wake always gets disrespected, but the same head coach and OC, I expect them to figure out to win 7 games. So he expects the head coach and OC to figure it out. And I could definitely see that happening for sure. Let's move on to BC. They are at a 5.5 win total, according to DraftKings. BC, a bad team last year. They had a lot of injuries, but they were just a bad team last year. BC was not a good team. Where do you think they go moving forward?
It's a really good question. I really don't have much high expectations for them this year either. I mean, I think they, returning one of the better offensive guards in the country, and Christian Mahogany, he obviously wasn't able to play last year. I think that helps. But the offensive line as a whole last year was a huge liability. They were pretty god awful, and Phil Jurkovec had a rough time back there, and which is why he's now at Pitt. So, and they haven't really made the additions. They haven't really made any huge splashes in the transfer portal. I don't really, and you lose a guy like Zay Flowers, who is one of the best, prospects to ever come out of Boston College, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. They really don't have much going for them. I think they're going to be well coached on defense. That's something we've been able to expect from them for a while. Jeff Hapley knows what he's doing there, but unless they find some continuity and a real identity on offense, we're probably going to expect more of the same as far as results. Maybe not quite as bad as what they went. They won 3 games last year or something like that. I think they'll be better than that.
It was bad.
I think they'll be slightly better than that, but I don't expect them to make a bowl game.
Yeah, I don't expect them to be too good this year. Go Tiger says he brings up a good point about Wake Forest. He says when Sam Hartman left, there were rumors that Wake wanted to move on from him, and Sam wanted to move on. So it's a win-win if the rumors were true.
I definitely heard some sentiments about that.
Yeah, I mean
I think they're really confident in Mitch Griffiths, and I think they're confident in what they have coming in. So,
and you kind of heard that out of the coaching staff throughout the season that they were kind of expecting Sam Hartman to take an NIL deal somewhere else and go play somewhere else, and you kind of heard the rumors, so it wasn't a real surprise when Sam Hartman transferred to someone else. But let's see, Virginia Tech at number 12. They are at 5 wins over under for Virginia Tech.
Yeah, Virginia Tech, obviously first year, Brent Pry, pretty much a disaster. Just, they bring in Grant Wells from the transfer portal, from Marshall. And, to hopefully jumpstart that offense. And it just did not come together. Offensive line wasn't good. They didn't have much of a running game. Passing game wasn't good. Nothing about that offense worked. I thought they were okay defensively. And they lost some pieces, on that side of the ball. But there's not really much going for them. I don't really see the big time playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. And if they don't have that, I don't expect Grant Wells to make much of a year 2 leap.
Yeah, I don't
They
think
could always surprise me.
I don't think they get much better at all this season, to be completely honest. There's nobody on that roster that really excites me, and I don't really think they get better at all. We got Georgia Tech at 13. Brent Key, they are sitting at 4.5 wins over under. The debacle that was Georgia Tech for a long time. They fired their coach. They bring in Brent Key. They promoted him from within. He was the interim. Now he's the head coach. They're still at the bottom of the ACC. Do you think Georgia Tech could make any headway in the ACC at all under Brent Key?
Maybe it's because of, I've been spending too much time around Sea-Dog. I don't know.
Sea-Dog is about that life, man. Sea-Dog is all about Georgia Tech, man.
But you know what?
He's a believer in Brent Key. He's a believer in Brent Key.
I'm buying stock in Georgia Tech.
Okay, all right.
I think they're going to hit I think they can hit 5 wins.
Okay, yeah.
I think they've done a really good job in the transfer portal. Obviously, they brought in Dominic Blaylock just most recently for the skill. I think they've done a really good job at upgrading that receiver room. I think Zach Pyron, I think he showed some real flashes at the end of the year. They also brought in Haynes King. So whoever wins that quarterback battle, I think they will definitely have a step up in quarterback talent for sure than mostly what they were starting, because Jeff Sims spent a lot of his career at Georgia Tech injured. So, I think when Brent Key came in, in midway through the interim, I thought I thought you saw a difference, a shift in how the team played. I thought there was a lot more fight, a lot more fire, and they played much better down the stretch. Brent Key doesn't have much head coaching experience. Well, none really. I do think they. While it's not the most inspiring hire, I do think that the team plays for him well, and they definitely just played more fundamentally sound, and I think they have a better talent than people give them credit for, and I think because of that, I think they're going to hit that. I think they can hit 5 wins for sure.
I think Brent Key fits Georgia Tech, right? And no, he's not an aspiring hire at all. He's not a flashy hire by any means, but neither was Dabo Swinney way back in 2008, 2009, right? Everybody said Clemson was a fool for hiring Dabo Swinney. He doesn't have any head coaching experience. He's only been a wide receiver coach and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying Brent Key is a Dabo Swinney by no means. Don't get me wrong. But I do think he fits Georgia Tech's culture. I do think the players there seem to respond to him last season, and I think there's something to be said about that. So, do I think they're going to be, suddenly, at the top of the ACC? No, not at all. I'm not saying that at all, but I do think I would take the over at 4.5 for Georgia Tech. I believe Brent Key can get more out of that roster than 4.5 wins. I really do. And then at the bottom of the list for the ACC is our boy Tony Elliott over at Virginia, UVA at 3.5. That's low, man. 3.5 for our boy Tony Elliott. What's your thoughts on our boy Tony Elliott over there at Virginia? What's your thoughts on why is that total so low?
Well, obviously, we know the struggles that Virginia went through last season, but both on the field and obviously the tragedy off the field, and they just team wasn't particularly good to especially on the offensive side of the ball. They had some real. I thought they were actually pretty solid defensively, but the offense was awful. And you had a guy like Brennan Armstrong who put those insane numbers up in 2021, looked like a shell of his former self, and was honestly just downright bad for a lot of the year. So, and you lose a lot of the receiver talent that you had. Dontavian Wicks is no longer there. I don't. Billy Kemp is no longer there. I don't think. It felt like he was there forever. So I hope he's not still there. Keaton Thompson is no longer there. Obviously, LaBelle Davis passed away, in the tragedy, and he's a really talented guy as well, and he's no longer there. So you really don't have a lot of skill position talent to work, at least known commodities to work with. But obviously they had some guys exit in the transfer portal. Saw Go Tigers mention Fentrell Cypress. And so there's not a lot to get excited about. I don't think for UVA this season. If they do have a really successful season, it'll be a surprise. But I will say I think they can hit 4 wins out of principle. I just think 3.5 is really, really low for a Power 5 team. It's typically
I do as
pretty
well
low for a Power 5 team. So I mean, if they go 4 I think they could hit 4 and 8 for sure. I don't think they're that. I think they're going to be a not very good team again. But I'll go over and obviously I want Tony Elliott to succeed. So
me too. I'll go over as well for that one. And
Malcolm Green and Kobe Pace are there too. So
there you go. Yeah, they did add some pieces. I don't think they're going to be any sort of breakaway team in the ACC or make any noise, but I do think that they could go for at least 4 wins. I do believe in Tony Elliott at least that much. Although I'm glad he's not our offensive coordinator anymore. But let's move on to our next topic. We'll transition into Clemson football a little bit. We talked about the ACC. We talked about win totals. It's nice to break it up a little bit with, kind of getting our thoughts on, different teams within the ACC. But we're going to bring it back to Clemson right now. And we're going to talk about season-defining players for Clemson in the 2023 season, or key players, at least, for Clemson's 2023 season. And we'll go offense and defense. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. Jordan, what is your number one key player for Clemson football on the offensive side of the ball heading into the 2023 season? Who is your player that if they do not play well, Clemson will not have a good season? It's
obvious, right?
It's obvious.
It's the guy running the show. Kate Klubnik. This offense is going to go with how Kate Klubnik goes, and
absolutely
we have to see him take that step, that progression from a true freshman and into an experienced and confident starting quarterback. And with Garrett Riley at the helm, we'll have to see. Obviously he brings the pedigree, he brings the offense, but at the end of the day, you still got to you got to prove it on the field. And at the end of the day, if Clemson doesn't get more out of the quarterback position than they have in the past couple of seasons, it's going to be another season that we've kind of seen the past 2 years. So
absolutely,
obviously number one.
Yeah, absolutely. I had Kate Klubnik number one as well for the offensive side of the ball. It all starts with the quarterback. Like I said before, it's not the NFL, but regardless, the quarterback position is the most important position in college football. It's the most important position in the NFL. It's the most important position in any level of football, right? But I think Kate Klubnik can get it done. I believe in Kate Klubnik. I think he is our guy, and certainly I believe in him this coming season. However, I will move on the offensive side of the ball, and I will say Bo Collins is the next guy that needs to be a standout player for this Clemson offense. And the reason that I say that is Bo Collins has been a part of this Clemson offense for many years. He has been hampered by injuries, but I think Clemson's 2023 season is really hinging on Bo Collins being an elite wide receiver for Clemson football. He needs to be able to catch the ball consistently in traffic. He needs to be able to catch the ball over top of defensive backs, cornerbacks. He needs to be able to go up and get 50-50 balls. He is 6'3". He is a big body receiver. I do think he's capable of doing it. But he is my number one guy behind Cade Klubnik that really needs to show out for this 2023 season in order for Clemson to reach their potential in the 2023 season.
100%. Bo Collins, the great pick. I think he has to kind of bounce back. He had a really strong start to the year, obviously dealt with injuries and wasn't as available. Clemson's success in the wide receiver room. And I'm going to go with the next guy I'm going to go with. His most important position on the field is that left tackle position. Cade Klubnik, he's protecting Cade Klubnik's blind side, and you're replacing a multi-year starter in Jordan McFadden. Tristan Lade, former 5-star recruit, highly touted guy, recruited by everybody. It's his time to shine, and if you don't get really strong play out of that position, you're going to have problems. So yeah, Tristan Lade is definitely is my guy for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I had Tristan Lay on my I had Tristan Lay on my list for sure. He was the one guy on the offensive side of the ball, on the offensive line, that I had on my list. I think really the offensive line success really will rely on how good Tristan Lay can perform this season. I think he's kind of that catalyst for the offensive side of the ball. We know what we have along the offensive side of the ball, but we are replacing a guy that went to the NFL, and we need Tristan Lay to really step up and kind of be that gap fill. We need that guy to really perform. My next guy that I'll mention is Adam Randall. Adam Randall was a guy that was talked about last fall camp. He was a guy coming in last fall camp as a freshman. The coaching staff really doted on him. They really talked about him a lot. They said that, he's kind of the next great Clemson wide receiver. He was going to be the guy at Clemson, and unfortunately he suffered an injury. He was out pretty much all of last season. He came back late, but he was super limited. I look for him to get super healthy. I look for him to get healthy, during the summer. I look for him to be a full go this fall camp and then contribute as the big body receiver that he is. So him and Bo Collins as big body receivers. Clemson has been the most successful on offense when they've kind of had two big dudes on the outside that can really go up, get those 50-50 balls, and really challenge the cornerbacks of the defense that they are playing. And I think if we can get production out of Bo Collins and out of Adam Randall this season, I think that the narrative will really start to turn on the Clemson wide receiver room. I know Clemson wide receivers room has been criticized a lot in the past couple years, and rightfully so. However, I think we do have the dudes in our wide receiver room currently that can turn that narrative. And I think Bo Collins and Adam Randall, that's where it starts.
100%. Do you want me to go another one, or do you want to move on to the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, go ahead. Go with another offensive guy.
All right. This will be my last one. I'm going to go with the tight end position. Give me Jake Brenningstool. I think Jake Brenningstool is the key to unlocking a lot of what has been missing from this offense the past couple of years. And I think Garrett Riley bringing in his system is going to be able to put him in the most advantageous situations for him to succeed. I mean, if you go back and look at Jake Brenningstool's recruitment, I mean, he was the number one tight end in his class. He was in the same class as Brock Bowers. He was higher rated than Brock Bowers. I mean, Jake Brenning in his high school tape was absolutely insane. I mean, when I first watched it, I fell in love with it immediately. I mean, the kid is amazing, and I feel like he hasn't been utilized to the degree that I think he could have been. And you saw him get a lot of burn early in the season, and I thought Brandon Streeter did a good job of getting him involved. And then down the stretch, they didn't do that as much. But now he's the main guy. Davis Allen's off to the NFL, and I think Jake Brenningstool is a matchup nightmare. As a receiving threat. So getting him in space and allowing him to make plays, I think it can only spell good things for the Clemson offense.
Absolutely. Jake Brenningstool was my last guy on the offensive side of the ball that I wanted to mention. So you're no, you're good. You're good. Don't worry about it. I'm glad you mentioned Jake Brenningstool. This dude was a problem in the spring game. If you saw some of the down the middle, the seam routes that he ran and caught in traffic, it was absolutely amazing. I hope we see a lot more of that coming this football season come fall, especially against Florida State. We're going to need a guy like Jake Brenningstool. If we want to go the places that Clemson football really wants to go, Jake Brenningstool is going to be a big part of this offense. And then I'll mention a last guy on the offensive side of the ball, and Harris Sewell. I know he's a freshman. I know he may not get a starting position on the Clemson offensive line, but I truly do believe that depth upon the offensive line is super important. And Harris Sewell, to me, this spring really proved himself. This dude was absolutely amazing. As much as we talked about Peter Woods and how amazing he was, Harris Sewell was right there blocking that guy the entire time and doing a pretty good job of it. So I think he's going to be a depth guy along the offensive line, if not get a lot of valuable playing time. I think he will be a guy that will contribute along the offensive line this season, and I look for Harris Sewell to be able to really contribute to the offensive side of the ball this year.
100% agree. Harris Sewell, about as ready, game ready of an offensive lineman that's come through Clemson, at least as a true freshman in a while. So, really excited to see.
Hey Jordan, if you can hear me, take your camera off. See if that helps you, because you're on a delay right now. Take your camera off and see if you can come back, because you're skipping around a lot. But we'll go on to the defensive side of the ball for season-defining players for Clemson in the 2023 season, and I will go with Xavier Thomas. One of the big question marks for Clemson heading into the season, at least as far as the defensive side of the ball goes, is the defensive edge, right? The defensive end side of the ball. You got a XT, you got a Justin Maskell coming back. Those guys are both veterans on the defensive side of the ball. However, XT has not been the healthiest player when it comes to being available on the defensive side of the ball. And I think XT is going to play a valuable role for this Clemson defense this season. And if he cannot stay on the field, I think Clemson is going to have problems on the defensive side of the ball, especially when it comes to defensive end and rushing the quarterback and things like that. So I think XT is going to be an instrumental part in this defense. I think he needs to stay healthy, both for Clemson football this season and then for his draft stock heading into the 2024 draft. That's kind of where I see XT going. And then you got a Justin Maskell on the other side for the defensive ends. I think this guy is a great player. He's kind of been in the shadows of a lot of Clemson defensive ends, but he chose to come back just like Xavier Thomas. And I really think the defensive end, as far as that position goes for Clemson football, really hinges on those two guys. It's going to be XT and it's going to be Justin Maskell to really determine how effective the Clemson defensive ends are. And I know we got other guys along the defensive end. We got a ton of dudes on the defensive end that we're looking to perform, but I really think it starts and stops with Xavier Thomas and Justin Maskell when it comes to our defensive ends. Jordan, are you there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So I just switched over to the defensive side of the ball. I don't know if you heard anything that I said. I kind of hit two dudes. I started with Xavier Thomas and Justin Maskell. Those two dudes along the defensive end. I think it stops and starts with our rushing of the quarterback, with our pressure. I believe that our defensive end group starts and stops with those two guys. And if they cannot stay healthy, I think we are going to have problems along the defensive edge for Clemson this season.
I agree. Defensive end, probably the biggest question mark on the defense right now. So you've got to get production out of there. And I definitely, you mentioned Xavier Thomas, he has to be available. Justin Maskell, obviously, he's been in the program a really long time. Mm-hmm. And then the guys behind him, guys like Cade Denoff, Zaire Patterson, need to step up. And I definitely think you'll see Peter Woods line up at defensive end as well. So you have options, you have guys that we think can play, but we just haven't seen a lot of. So you've got to get production out of there for sure. I'm going to go into the defensive secondary. I'm going to go with my guy that really. I think he deserves a strong season more than anybody. I'm going to go with safety Andrew Makuba.
Hey, that was my next dude. Good job.
Of course it was. We think too much alike. But Andrew obviously went through his struggles last season, playing out of position, and due to some necessities, due to injuries, and obviously he was playing hurt himself as well. With the additions that Clemson has made in the offseason and the guys they're bringing back, he's going to be able to play more in his natural position at safety. And I think that's going to go a long way for him, having a successful year. And we definitely need that, that freshman year Andrew Makuba back. I think he's going to have a really big year. I think he's definitely a key player this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew Makuba was definitely my third pick. Hold on. Yeah. Andrew Makuba was definitely my third pick. If you guys see it there, I got it written on my list of guys that I wrote down.
Man, you have a whole list, man. I wish I had a list.
I got a whole list, man. Andrew Makuba was third on my list. I'm glad you mentioned him. I think he's a key role in Clemson's defense this year. And then I will go to another defensive back. I will go Andrew Wiggins, or excuse me, Nate Wiggins. Good Lord, I've been watching too much. I've been watching.
When did Andrew Wiggins change sports?
I've been watching too much NBA, dude. I've been watching too much NBA. I've been watching the Warriors and the Lakers play. So Nate Wiggins at cornerback, I think he is going to be an instrumental role in the Clemson defense this season. He proved himself last season. All of us know what happened in the Wake Forest game. Andrew Wiggins, Nate Wiggins, got completely destroyed by Sam Hartman. He threw all over him. He embarrassed him. and he was absolutely outmatched. He got frustrated. He was not ready for the moment. But after that moment, Wiggins went to work. He went to work and he worked on his craft. He didn't make excuses. He accepted that, guess what? I did not play well. And he said it to reporters. He said it to the coaching staff. He said it to his fellow players. He said, I'm going to get better. And guess what he did? He got better. And Wiggins went out there and played his butt off for the rest of the season. So I think he is the leader in the secondary for Clemson. I think that guy, with his mentality and how he attacked it after his lowest point in college, I think that's the type of dude that Clemson needs in order to be their leader in the locker room when it comes to the secondary of Clemson. And if that dude's your leader, that dude that can have that type of game against Wake Forest and then come back and really just play outside of his mind, I don't think there's anything better. I believe in Wiggins so much. And I think he's going to have a great season. And I think Clemson's defensive backfield hinges on his leadership and his ability to inspire the rest of those guys back there.
Great pick, Nate Wiggins.
Yeah, not Andrew, but Nate.
Yes, yeah, not Andrew for sure.
Although Andrew Wiggins played great in Game 5.
Yeah, he did. He was balling.
Yeah, he played great.
something about the last name Wiggins.
Yeah, something about the last name Wiggins, man. You just you play great. Who's your next pick on defense?
It's really actually a good question. Been debating. I'm going to go with. It's kind of too obvious, but I'm kind of going to cheat and just pick both Jeremiah Trotter and Barrett Carter.
Okay, no, I like those picks.
They are obviously probably arguably the best duo in all of college football. I mean, just the talent that they have. Barrett Carter, just great, just an insane athlete, plays with a lot of fire. Jeremiah Trotter, that man loves to hit. Problem in the middle. I think these two guys are just phenomenal. And I guess I could have included Wade Woodaz as well. I'm interested to see how many linebackers Clemson puts on the field as far as how often they put 2 or 3 linebackers on the field. But Wade Woodaz is definitely going to be in that conversation as well. But Trotter and Carter obviously are 2 potential first-round picks, and they have the ability for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I also have Sheridan Jones and Jaden Lucas on my list. Sheridan Jones and Jaden Lucas, those guys really got to show out this season. We really need contributions from both of those guys. I know Jaden Lucas has been somewhat limited on the field, but Sheridan Jones and Jaden Lucas, I think those dudes will contribute greatly to the Clemson defense this season, and we really need them to show up and show out this season. And it's really I think hinging on our defensive ends and our secondary this season. I think our interior line is going to be great. Our linebacker core is obviously one of the best in the country in Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter. But I really do think that our defensive ends with XT, Justin Maskell, and then Jaden Lucas, Sheridan Jones, and Nate Wiggins on the outside, I really do think those dudes are going to be the catalyst for Clemson being a really great defense this season. And Wade Woodaz is really going to be the wild card this season. I like a Wade Woodaz. He's going to play kind of that hybrid position He's going to play that that floater position for Clemson on the defensive side of the ball. He's super athletic. He's a guy that really gets downhill on the quarterback. He can rush the quarterback. He can drop into coverage. So Wade Woodaz is definitely going to be a key on this defense as well. But I really do look to the defensive ends and the secondary to be the catalyst for how good this defense is going to be. And that's just kind of that's kind of my thoughts on the Clemson defense this season. Go Tiger says we can truly be special on defense this year. Yeah, no, I'm with you, Go Tigers. We can definitely be special on defense this year. I know we lost a lot of great players to the NFL this year, and Brian Brzee and Miles Murphy and those type of dudes that went to the NFL. And I know they are great. I expect them to have very long NFL careers, but I think Clemson defense is going to be just fine. We got guys that came back that we didn't think were going to come back. And I think if XT stays healthy, if Justin Maskell stays healthy, if Nate Wiggins does his thing, Sheridan Jones does his thing, Jaden Lucas does his thing, Andrew Makuba, RJ Mickens, all those guys, if they do their thing, we are going to be just fine on the defensive side of the ball. I do believe in Wes Goodwin when it comes to a defensive coordinator. I think he can put guys in the right position in order to limit offenses, especially in the ACC, but more specifically on the national landscape. And I really think those are kind of our season-defining players. I don't know if Jordan is back with us yet. Jordan, are you there?
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and cut off your camera. I think it'll be easier if you. I think it'll come off better if you cut off your camera.
All right.
I think the sound will come better. I talked about. I don't know if you heard, but I talked about Nate Wiggins. I talked about Sheridan Jones. I talked about Jaden Lucas on the back end, really being the catalyst. I think the defensive end and the cornerback position and just the secondary in general are going to kind of be how our defense goes this year. And I do believe in Wes Goodwin. I'm not saying he's a Brent Venables. I'm not saying Clemson doesn't miss Brent Venables by any means. But I do think we got dudes on the defensive side of the ball that we can be super successful this season, especially with the Andrew Makuba playing in his true position this year. And we got a Sheridan Jones, a Jaden Lucas playing on the outside. Obviously, a Nate Wiggins, we know what he can do. He improved so much last season. I'm excited to see what our defense is able to do this year.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the personnel is all there. It just comes down to it gelling together. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, Wes Goodwin didn't have the best season, the first year as a coordinator, but I think there's a lot more confidence on his end coming into this year. I think he took a lot of what happened last season to heart, and I think he's determined to really become the defensive coordinator that he was hyped up to be, by not just Dabo Swinney, but a lot of people that are familiar with the program and close to him, raved about his intellect, his ability as a football mind. And so I think we're going to see that. I think the thing about him is now stepping into being a coach, because it takes more than just knowing the X and O's, to be a coach. You got to be able to motivate. You got to be able to communicate with your guys. You got to be able to get the most out of your guys, and you got to be able to hold them accountable. And I think those are things that he struggled with at times last season. But I think the pieces are all there. The recruiting has been where it needs to be, and I think you've got a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball, and now it's just it just comes down to putting it all together. And,
yeah. Yeah, no, I think Clemson's defense is going to be just fine. I 100% believe in Wes Goodwin, no doubt about it. And we'll move on from that. We'll move on to into our next segment, and let's talk about Kate Klubnik a little bit. Our quarterback on the offensive side of the ball. We all believe Kate Klubnik
As opposed to
is
the quarterback on the defensive side of the ball.
yeah, for sure. That's Jeremiah Trotter, by the way. That's
Fair
Jeremiah
enough.
Trotter.
Fair enough.
He's just fine. No doubt about that. But K Klubnik signed a NIL deal. He got a fresh truck. I don't know if you guys are on Twitter or Instagram or wherever that was posted. But he signed an NIL deal with a dealership down in Clemson, and got himself some nice new wheels. So shout out to Cade Klubnik for maximizing his NIL potential and and getting himself a free truck. What was another Clemson player with that dealership too, or
I don't remember. I remember just seeing Kate Klubnik, but I didn't.
okay.
I know he was involved in that, so he got a nice. It looked really nice.
It looked good. It looked good, right? Go Tiger says West did a good job last year for the first time DC, and he was learning on the job, and we will see huge steps forward from him. I believe that as well. Go Tigers! I believe that as well. Yeah. So Go Tiger says Brian Brzee was with that dealership last year. So I guess Brian Brzee got himself a truck as well. But we'll end the show tonight. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Trevor Lawrence interview with Darian Rencher. So if you guys don't know, Darian Rencher's got a YouTube page, and he's interviewing different people. He interviewed Trevor Lawrence, and he kind of asked Trevor Lawrence a bunch of different questions. It was like an hour plus interview. But if you guys have seen anything on Twitter or anything like that, Ohio State fans were kind of going crazy because Trevor Lawrence talked about his favorite game being against Ohio State in that playoff run, in the 2019 playoff run, when we kind of got dismantled by LSU. But the fumble that was overturned with what's his name?
Justin Ross.
Justin Ross, thank you. Justin Ross caught the ball or didn't catch the ball, according to the referees, and fumbled, and they took it in for a touchdown. It was ruled a non-catch. And then, Clemson went on to win the game. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence had that big run. Everybody knows it. And that's kind of Trevor Lawrence's, according to him, that was his favorite game of his college career. Why, I don't know, but that's kind of what he said. It didn't end well for the Clemson Tigers, but it was a great win against the Ohio State Buckeyes. And it's funny how they keep crying about that game. And Trevor Lawrence kind of talked about how they keep crying about that game. Everybody knows that the Ohio State fan base, they tend to cry about every single game that they don't win. They have never lost a game. It's just simply the referees that make them lose a game. Just ask Georgia, ask Clemson, ask any major team that they've lost to in the near future.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear that perspective, and it was interesting he picked that game obviously because Trevor Lawrence won a national championship. I mean he as a freshman he eviscerated Alabama by 28 points,
Right.
And had one of the best championship game performances we've seen in the playoff era, and but his favorite game was that Fiesta Bowl. But when you give it a lot of thought, I mean it makes a lot of sense. And I mean that was probably the game where he overcame the most adversity. Obviously a 16-0 deficit. Wasn't much going on offense. T. Higgins and Justin Ross both dealt with injuries in that game. They were, Travis Etienne wasn't able to get much going on the on the run game, and so they had their backs up against the wall, and Trevor Lawrence he put the team on his back and won that game, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, and it's a huge accomplishment, and it meant a lot for that team. It was a really emotional win for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We should make a whole episode on the Fiesta Bowl, for sure.
Well, there's if you guys are, this is a good chance to plug the Patreon.
Okay.
Me and Mark and we're still putting it together, but pretty soon we're gonna do a Patreon stream, kind of a rewatch of that Fiesta Bowl from a Clemson and Ohio State fan perspective. So make sure you guys tune in keep up with that, and if you're interested, sign up for the Patreon. It's a really good chance to support Mark in the channel, and you get a lot of cool perks like exclusive live streams. So if you're really interested in that, then consider signing up for the Patreon.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so you guys are going to do a stream rewatching the Fiesta Bowl. Okay, that's cool. Go Tiger says they had a chance to win that game at the end. Fields threw the ball to Nolan Turner instead of throwing the ball to his guy. Yeah. Tune into the Mark Rogers Patreon page if you guys are interested in it. There's a lot of football talk over there. And that's what supports what me and Jordan do over here on the Clemson channel. And last but not least, we'll talk about a little bit more of the Trevor Lawrence and Darian Rencher interview. And they kind of outlined what happened during the 2020 football season, the COVID year. So if all football fans remember back to the COVID season and how everybody thought that football was not going to happen during the COVID season because, of all the restrictions and all the stuff like that. And it got pretty political. We're not going to get political here. But if you go back, you search YouTube for the Darian Rencher channel, you'll see the Trevor Lawrence interview pop up. It was a little more over an hour interview. But at the end of the interview, they started talking about kind of the behind the scenes stuff that happened during that COVID year. And they kind of came back after spring practice and they were kind of told by Dabo Swinney that, we're not really going to have a season and all that kind of stuff. And then, Darian Rencher and Trevor Lawrence got to work and they set up a Zoom call with they named a lot of names that were on the call. It was basically all the big names from every conference in college football. It was Trevor Lawrence, Darian Rencher. I think they said Najee Harris was on the call. Chuba Hubbard was on the call. Justin Fields was on the call. Kayvon Thibodeau was on the call. Penei Sewell was on the call. So there was a bunch of dudes on the call, and they all got together and they were like, "Hey, we got to make this college football season happen," and the rest is history, right? Everybody knows what happened. Kind of Trevor Lawrence tweeted out that thing that, hey, we want to play. I don't know why you guys are trying to say that we can't play. We want to play football, and so on and so forth. And then the 2020 season happened. So it was really cool. You guys go on to Darian Rencher's account. Go listen to that interview between him and Trevor Lawrence, and they kind of get into the back, kind of the behind the scenes of what happened and them organizing and really making that 2020 season happening, which was pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, it really, really awesome perspective, and just from two fan favorites from Clemson. And, it's a really incredible story, just kind of how that whole thing came together. And it's pretty amazing what change can happen when when players bring their voices together and voice their desires and concerns and demands, and change happens. And I think that was kind of a precursor to a lot of the change that we've seen across the sport in recent years when it comes to NIL and the transfer portal, and just the growing sense of player agency. So really good interview, really awesome listen. So make sure you guys check that out if you haven't, because you'll definitely enjoy that especially if you're a Clemson fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of all we got for the show tonight, guys. We're sitting at an hour and almost 45 minutes right now. So if you guys got any questions for myself or Jordan Bowman, we're about to get out of here tonight. So go ahead and get your questions in right now if you have any. If not, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. So
I'm going to amend that. If you have questions for Tiger Paul Craven, make sure you leave them. I'm going to go ahead and drop out because my phone is on life support. So,
all right, Jordan.
This was awesome. Obviously, this is not the most professional of settings that we've done the show in, but obviously, circumstances came about. So I really appreciate you guys for sticking around and listening and sticking around through the technical difficulties, because there were certainly a ton on my end. But another great show. I will see you guys, and I'll be in a more stable position next week for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Jordan, let me know about that Fiesta Bowl stream.
Oh yeah.
I'll pop on there with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll put that in the group chat with Mark for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Put that in the group chat with Mark. I'm definitely available to pop on with that Fiesta stream. I'd be excited to be in there for it. One of my favorite Clemson games as well. So
I think I've lost it. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, later, Jordan. Thanks for joining us, man.
Absolutely. See y'all next week.
See ya. All right, guys. That's all we got for you guys tonight for the All In Show, episode 19 in the books. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We got 10 people in here right now. If you have not already hit that like button, please go ahead and hit that like button for us. Subscribe to the channel. Share this video with the rest of your people, your college football fans, the degenerates just like us that follow college football year round. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, I am Tiger Paul Craven. We will see you next week, 7 p.m. Tiger Paul Craven signing out.